Everyone has been stuck at home for the last 3 months, and now different places are opening. We can only hope that there is not going to be a second wave of the coronavirus. But I still think we are at a stage where the economy is slowly starting to kick back in. And the question that I hear from our clients continuously is, what do we focus on in the next 3 months? What are the practical steps that we need to follow in the next 3 months so we can recover from those the time where everybody was at home, spending had dropped. We saw some sales drop with some of the clients. We've actually had some clients that actually had a boom in the last 3 months. So it's been a mixed bag. But if you are one of those companies that managed to see an increase in sales, how do you maintain that? And if you are a company that saw a drop in sales, well, how do I kick the engines back again? Now, and I'm gonna, in this webinar, just to be useful, I'm gonna give you actual practical steps of things I want you to focus on and implement over the next 3 months. I like to divide those into two different groups, strategic and tactical. Now, lots of times, one of the biggest issues that marketers fall into is we focus a lot on the tactical. So we're just busy doing things, busy doing different activities. And unfortunately, we're not able to, because we don't focus on the strategy and the guiding strategy, our tactics don't produce the results. So sometimes we're busy just for the sake of being busy. So I always say you need to focus 60% of your work on strategic projects, 40% of your work, 40% of your time on tactical. Now, ideally and internally for us at Invest, with our clients or with our own work, we're focusing 70% of the time on strategic projects, 30% of the time on tactical projects. Wow, how does that impact you? If you're working in-house, this is very powerful. You can train somebody really quickly to do tactical projects. Within probably like 1 month, 2 months, they're able to be up and running to do tactical projects. Strategic projects require a lot more effort. They're a lot more valuable. They bring in a lot more revenue. And of course, you know, they make you a lot more noticeable to upper management. Yesterday, I had somebody reach out to me. She's a director of marketing, and she was going to hire an intern. And she said, hey, Khalid, we're going to hire this intern. I cannot offer her like the internship anymore. Would you be interested in bringing her on? So I was asking her about the intern. And what I thought was interesting is that she mentioned, listen, this intern was able to be up and running. This intern doesn't have any marketing experience. She's able to be up and running and managing our email campaigns or Marketo instance within a month. And I trust her to do all that stuff. Now, this director of marketing is very capable, and I trust her judgment. If you're somebody who's doing marketing, and I can bring an intern to like within a month to be able to do email marketing, to manage Marketo, to figure out the email sequences, lead nurturing, and whatnot, that should give you a pause, correct? That means tactical projects are easy to execute. So the question to you is, well, what are the strategic projects that I need to be working on? And what are, even within the tactical projects, how can I stand out and how can I be different? Now, when we talk about strategic projects, here are the different strategic projects that I want you to think about that you should definitely be implementing over the next 3 months. You need to be conducting customer interviews, and I'm going to talk about each one of those and give you more insights into each one of those. You need to be doing competitive analysis. You need to be figuring out the difference, and that's very strategic and perhaps the hardest. We're going to be talking about channel analysis, and we're going to be talking about the marketing plans moving forward. Each one of those is very strategic in the fact that with strategic projects, there's two things to them. One, they are difficult to get buy-in sometimes from management because they want tactical, unless you're blessed with a really good director or VP of marketing who understand, or a president or an owner who understands the importance of strategic projects, because strategic projects take longer to implement, and sometimes it's difficult to show the ROI on them right away. Now, let's talk about customer interviews, and people find this very strange whenever I talk about customer interviews and customer interviews being strategic. So we have a large SEO company perhaps one of the definitely one of the oldest SEO companies that hired us to help them do conversion optimization. They hired us about a month ago, and they said, hey, can you come in and help us do conversion optimization for our site? We need to increase the number of leads that we're generating through our sites. I looked through their sites, and I'm talking to the owner, and I told him, listen, first thing I want to do is customer interviews. And I can see the hesitation in my client's face when I mentioned that. He's like, customer interviews, I mean, we've done them. How useful? They're going to talk to you about the experience of working with us. I'm trying to get more leads. And I told him, no, I am not interested. When I conduct customer interviews, the strategic customer interviews are not the customer interviews about how is your experience doing business with us. Those are important. Those are helpful. They can be strategic or tactical, but I find them most of the time, very tactical. Where it's a lot more powerful and customer interviews become a lot more strategic is in asking different set of questions when we start understanding these circumstances that led a customer to start using a product or service. So the first thing, in order for you to really achieve those strategic customer interviews, what you need to do is you need to figure out, okay, well, you need to find the right customers to interview. Then those are basically customers who have bought your product, bought your services. You want to spend time interviewing those customers, and you want to find those customers who bought your product or service within the last 1 to 3 months. I don't like to interview customers who have bought products or services more than 3 months ago because they forgot about the experience and what actually pushed them to make the decision. Less than a month is still, sometimes they're going through a honeymoon period and they're not willing to be honest. So usually we would send a questionnaire to the customer base and say, hey, you bought our product in the last 3 months. We would love to interview you. And typically we do offer them, if it's B2B, we don't offer gift certificates usually because the relationship is as strong. But if it's B2C, we'll offer some sort of a gift certificate with whether it's on the store, an Amazon gift certificate. If you're a SaaS, sometimes we offer 1 month for free. We find that very, very powerful. Second thing that we do during the interviews, and this is where it switches from being a strategic versus tactical customer interview, is you're not asking the customer why they bought your product or service. Never ask that as a rule. And people always find it very strange that, I say that. I always tell people, do not ask customers why they bought the product or service, because most of the time what they give you is top of mind answers. What you need to do is ask them, when did you buy the product or service? What was going on in your life at that point when you pulled the trigger? Now, in the last webinar, I did one of those interviews with one of the attendees, and she had bought just a bread maker, and it sounded like, okay, well, I just want to buy a bread maker. Now, as we went through the interview, and it was about 25 minutes, the reasons for buying the bread maker turned from, well, I'd like to make bread, into personal reasons for her and how she feels about herself, about her husband. The strategic customer interviews will dig up emotional and social aspects of why a customer buys an interview. Now, for those of you guys who are interested in listening to that last customer interview, I did put the recording in our private Facebook group. The follow-up email after this webinar will include a link to that. You can join it. You can listen to it. So it's helpful to really understand what type of customer interviews you need to be conducting. Now, after you finish those customer interviews, you need to analyze them. You need to look for trends. So I'll go back to the SEO company that had hired to our SEO company, our client. We've done now the interviews with their different clients, and now we're starting to see consistent trends. More powerful is we start to see similar language that their customers are using, and that is extremely powerful when you hear 5 of your customers telling you use the same exact phrases, the same exact words in describing how they selected you, what they were looking for, the results that they were expecting. They're giving you the formula of things that you need to use in your PPC if you're using PPC, on your landing pages if you're using landing pages, the copy on your site. So I go back to that client, and I'm having a conversation with him. And I told him, let's call him John. And I'm like, John, what do you think of those interviews? I know you were hesitant and you were not open to doing those interviews when I first suggested them. And he said, well, I'll be honest, I didn't really expect a whole lot to come out of them. The dollar value that we got out of those interviews, if I look at it cumulatively, is probably worth tens of millions of dollars for us. He did not expect that 5 customer interviews, and he's somebody who's been doing SEO for now close to 30 to 25 years. So somebody who's very versed in marketing, somebody who knows the market in and out. And now he says, well, those 5 hours of customer interviews were very, very powerful. If you have any questions, by the way, please use the chat to send me those questions. Let me see. I believe, yes, we are recording the webinar. We will make the webinar recording available. And again, usually on an engagement, we will conduct anywhere between 8 interviews up to 20 interviews. Each one of those interviews runs for anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour. So it's one-on-one interviews. Remember, customers were fascinated by data, but most of the time what we end up doing is we collect few data points from a lot of our customers. Think about analytics as few data points where people are clicking. Well, one click. When we launch polls on different sites, what's happening? We are collecting few data points from our customers. And the reality, when you collect few data points, you miss the context. And without having the context, your copy becomes very plain. Your marketing becomes very similar to other marketing, and you're not able to persuade potential customers to say, you know what, this is the type of company that I want. They are different. I want to actually engage them. Now, when you do the different approach where you say, you know what, I want a lot of different data points from fewer number of customers. So you see kind of the difference in the approach there. A lot more data points from fewer customers, that can give you rich context of why people are buying your product or service. And that can really be the engine towards any growth in the next three months. I'll just last thing about those customer interviews, because I think it's important to understand this. Let's say you conduct 20 customer interviews. You're doing probably about an hour of preparation. Pre the interview, you're doing an hour postmortem, post-interview analysis. So 20 customer interviews is about 60 hours. Sometimes probably when you put the analysis, another 10 to 20 hours. So you're looking at probably at anywhere between 80 to 90 hours. What is important is, as you do those interviews, start capturing next steps. Lots of times as marketers, we do a lot of activity, but there are no clear next steps. That sort of kills any type of marketing that you do. What are the next steps? Don't rush into implementing those next steps. So we're not going to be hasty, but we're going to start capturing some of those next steps and thinking about them as we are doing some of the other strategic projects that we're going to be looking at. Something else that you should be looking at is competitive analysis. This is so important, yet it is very tricky. I see many companies try and do competitive analysis, and they fail at it. Now they fail in some aspect, because when they do competitive analysis, what they end up doing is just copying their competitors, and you end up with a herd mentality where everybody looks the same. I have shared this story previously where we had this prospect. They said, hey, Khaled, we want to hire you, but we're also talking to other conversion optimization companies. And I thought to myself, okay, the other CRO firms, and then they're the top CRO firms, since they're participating, I'm going to participate. And since I've been in CRO longer than them, I'm going to be able to stand out. Our process looks different. That's what I thought. So we do the presentation. Long story short, I have a really good relationship with the CMO. And now I'm talking to Michael. Michael is their CMO, Michael, and I give him a call. Michael, we've done the presentation. You've seen the presentation from the other companies. How different do you think we are? And Michael was very honest. He said, Khaled, you guys all sound the same. So this is a problem. Sometimes we look way too much at our competitors that we start copying them. And that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is look at our competitors and look at their sites. Sometimes you can get ideas from there, but do not copy. You want to also look very carefully about the offer that they have. This is very important. What are they offering? How they're differentiating themselves from other companies in the market. And all you're doing is just jotting these things down. Whenever you're doing competitive analysis, don't go into copying your competitors, because that is just a formula to shoot yourself in the foot. Your goal is to really understand what is the differentiation strategy that your competitors have? What kind of copy do they have? Are they presenting themselves in a very formal way? Are they informal? What type of marketing are they doing? What type of channels are they hitting? And if you're an agency, this is something that's very important that you do for your clients. Now, again, the goal is not to copy the competitors, but to kind of like say, okay, well, they're following an informal style. Are we consciously following a certain style? Is that the image that we want, that our competitors portray a certain image, whether in social media, in their email marketing, on their sites? Are we actually very conscious about the marketing that we do, the image that we portray for our clients? Now, I always like to look at the top 3 to 5 competitors. What's interesting is lots of times when you think about your competitors and what your potential customers think about your competitor, who your competitors are 2 completely different circles, and they don't match. For the longest time, for example, we thought that our competitors as Invest are other CRO firms. That's naturally, we are a CRO firm, and other agencies that offer conversion optimization are our direct competitors. But in the mind of some of the large enterprise clients that we have, and when we talk to them and we're conducting those interviews with them, it turns out that they were not selecting between Invest and another CRO firm. No, they were selecting between Invest. Do we invest in conversion optimization and experimentation, or do we actually double down on our PPC ads? So guess what? I was not, regardless to what messaging I was using, I was not competing with another CRO firm. I was competing with a PPC firm. In one case, I was competing with a company that produces the catalog, the paper catalog for my clients. So understand your competitors. And that's one of the reasons that whenever you're conducting customer interviews, and I go back to customer interviews and how strategic they are. When you're conducting customer interviews, you're asking your customers, so what was going on in your life? What was happening? Who did you consider when you thought about you need to solve this problem? What was, that can really drive your understanding of the competitive landscape. One of the hardest things that you will do in marketing is differentiation. Now, if you're in-house, if you're running an e-commerce site, if you're an in-house for a SaaS, it's very, very hard. If you're an agency, by the way, how do you distinguish yourself from the other million agencies that offer something very similar to what you offer? Now, this starts, and differentiation starts by understanding why your customers buy your product or service. And don't tell me about the functional aspects. So they want to run PPC. Okay, they want to run SEO. No, let's drill a bit deeper, because you can figure out your positioning based on the understanding of why your customers buy your product or service. And then something extremely important is to understand is, well, what does everybody offer? In our competitive landscape, what do they offer? What is common between the different services that our competitors offer? Think about this. We had one client that sold cell phone accessories. They've been around since 2008, and they were doing really well. Their sales took a nosedive in 2015, and they're like, well, we have a really well optimized website. We run very thorough experimentation program, but we're seeing our sales drop. Well, yes, because they did not think about how do I distinguish myself from my competitors. Amazon comes in, Amazon's offering the same products, and guess what? Amazon Prime is available for free. 2/3 of US households have Amazon Prime, so they just killed your business. How are you different? This is very strategic. This is one of the hardest things that you can work on. In the book, I forget the name of the book, but it's about the Challenger sale. It talks about the survey that was conducted with asking question like, how are you different to 55,000 companies in the US. 32,000 of them said that they are unique and they are different. Well, it's impossible to have 32,000 unique and different companies. Now we'll go through an exercise to talk about this, and I think this will be a bit more interesting. Which space in the mind of your customers is not occupied? People buy different products because there is a space that they need the product to fill. Now, there is a specific segment within your market that will need that space to be filled. I gave an example yesterday on LinkedIn of Lululemon jeans. I have a rule where I do not buy jeans that are going to cost more than $50. That's just my straight up rule. It doesn't make sense to me. Why would I pay more than $50 for jeans? As a matter of fact, probably most of my jeans are cheaper than that at the risk of sounding really cheap. My brother-in-law likes to buy jeans from Lululemon. And my question to him right away is, well, how much are they? And he says it's $130. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, so a pair of jeans for $130 makes no sense to me. And as a matter of fact, when he said $130, my first response to him was, oh, this is stupid. Why would you spend $130 on a pair of jeans? And he looks at me and he says, well, because people like me wear these types of jeans. Now, people like me, this is very powerful. If you can define your own tribe, your own customer segment, that will say, people like me buy from this particular place, buy this particular product. What is this people like me? This is very, very hard, and we'll take an example of that. Even more powerful is to frame your competitors. I mean, hey, if you're somebody with a lot of money to spend on waste, go ahead and buy a Lululemon. But if you're looking for something really practical, if you're looking for something that's durable, is looking something that looks as good as Lululemon, probably manufactured in the same place, you buy from us. See, I framed the competitor. So figuring out how you can frame your competitors, that is very powerful. And then you want to broadcast your difference. Now, let's take a practical example, because this was very theoretical, but let me show you how we would do this. So I typically like to do just a very simple plot, 2 lines, and I look at the different features that I can compete on. One of them could be price, one of them could be quality, one of them, whatever it might be. So you just pick 2 different criterias, correct? And you start plotting your different competitors. And you say, this one competitor, let's say on the vertical axis, well, they're very focused on their medium price. Well, if this was price, and this one is lower price. Maybe this is quality. Well, high quality, lower price. This is rare to be in. When you plot your top competitors, 5 competitors, 10 competitors, I like to do it with the top competitors, top 5. You figure out the empty areas that you can occupy. I can position myself over here. I can position myself over here. I can position myself over here. I can position this quadrant that is completely empty. Now, you want to ask yourself, what is it that customers are looking for and no one else is offering? And this again goes back to customer interviews, asking those very tough questions to understand, well, what area do I want to occupy? Again, this is very strategic. This requires a lot of work. This is one of the hardest things that's for you, if you're an agency, to figure out for your clients, if you're in-house, to figure out how different you are. I'll give another example from FigPie, and then we'll do a couple of other examples, and maybe you guys can participate with me. So FigPie offers A/B testing, heat maps, video recording, and polls. Guess what? There are lots of competitors that offer the same thing, correct? Hotjar offers the same thing. VWO, Visual Website Optimizer, offers the same thing. And the question is, well, how do I, as a newcomer to the market, actually manage to set myself a bit different, kind of analyzing that space? And because everybody copies everybody else, we all look the same. So the biggest difference is very, very minimal, is on price and the number of visitors that come to the site. Well, the one thing that no one else is offering is actually actionable insights from the data that we're collecting. We're all collecting data. All of those competitors are collecting data, but none of us is offering something unique. Well, how do I position myself where I build my technology to find more actionable insights? That's a lot different. Now, let me give you kind of a classic example on differentiation over here. Guess how many brands of water there are in the US? Anybody dares to guess? Let's use the, I should have created a poll on this, but what do you think? How many brands of water there are in the US? We're talking about 100, 200. What do you guys think? Let's use the chat feature and then show me, give me some answers over here. How many brands of water there are available? And I'm drinking one of those. I like to drink. I don't even know the brand, by the way, which is sort of sad. I've been drinking this Soliel. for the last year or so. I actually had to look at the can to remember the brand. How many brands of water do you think we have? And let me see if I can see the chat. And okay, so how many brands of water? Polling Q&A, polling. I probably should have done actually a poll on this. Okay, I'm not able to see the chat window, which is sort of not very helpful. Imagine you're the marketing director, you're the CMO for one of those brands, for Voss, Fiji, or Dasani. There are 1,000 brands of water within the US, and you're this lucky CMO that is going to have to position your product differently than a Fiji or a Dasani or a Voss. They're, by the way, different classes, correct, within the water. The Dasanis, the Fijis, that are Fiji, by the way, entered the US market back in 2002, 2003, and they managed to become the second brand in the US very, very quickly. I think within 3 to 4 years. A Voss costs anywhere between $20 to $40, and in some instances in nightclubs, it fetches close to $100. I would never pay for a Voss. I think it's stupid to pay that much money. But at the same time, there are people who are going to pay Voss, $100 for a Voss, because they think it's smart to pay that much, correct? And remember, all of them are competing with the same thing. And let me see. Okay, I see the chats. Unaccountable. Actually, okay, I agree. Well, there's about 1,000 of them. If they're all competing with a free option, correct? They are all competing with the tap water that I can open and drink. How do you position yourself where you can start generating millions, if not tens of millions of dollars? And that's kind of the challenge. So let's do something a bit different and something a bit more interesting. For those of you guys, if you want to look at a differentiation strategy, and just to make this a bit more interesting, would you like us to look at your site and figure out if there's an actual differentiation based on your site, strictly based on your site, based on your competitors? If you would like, let's use the chat feature and send me actually your site. It will be we need a volunteer over here where we can pull up your site and see if there is something unique about what you offer. If we can just, by looking at your site, looking at your copy, we can figure out what is different about you. Okay, so I got a couple of volunteers, and okay, I'm gonna actually click. So I'm gonna take 2 examples, and let's take a look at both. It'll be interesting. Okay. So we pulled one of them, Advanced Green Home Solutions, okay. And I'm just trying to see where my mouse decided, oh, here it is. I'll take another website. Welcome to Advanced, by the way, just right away, your most important title on the page is the page that is the title on the homepage. Welcome to Advanced Green Home Solutions. You just lost me there. Isaiah, and we're doing this very frankly and very openly, correct? So you're going to have to take my commentary on it. Welcome to Advanced Green Home Solutions. You just lost me there. You need to tell me what you do. You need to tell me how you're different. This is your differentiation statement, by the way. Here's what I do. Here's how I'm different, at least to start with. Advanced Green Home Solutions is an award-winning BGE and PEPCO, a certified company for energy audits and full weatherization retrofits. Our full-time team consists of BPI certified buildings analysts, BPI envelope professionals. Okay. What you have, and you'll see, by the way, a section about this later, so you will benefit from this. This is marketing speak, correct? When I'm talking to you, when you're talking to your friend, when you're talking to a friend, you're talking to your mom, for example, to your significant other, you're not going to tell them, I'm an award-winning BGE and PEPCO, certified company. This is marketers. This is me writing copy that's not very powerful, not very strong, correct? Talk how normal. It's funny. I was showing this to my daughter one time. I was showing her copy, and she said, "It's like no one speaks like that." Now she's talking about real life, and I told her, "Well, and where I live, they speak like that." She looked at me. She's like, "Where do you live?" I told her, "In the land of marketers." Again, this top section is your chance to set, here's what we do, here's how we're different. What I have over here, the title, You Lost Me, right there. And right away also this advanced award-winning, whenever I see that, I have a meter, and I'm not going to mention what kind of meter it is, but it sounds like, a sensor that just says, I don't like it. So you got to rework the copy. And by the way, we'll have some recommendations on copy shortly, but that's one of the areas that you want to focus on. I'll take another example. And by the way, I didn't even get the chance to compare you. I'm just going to make another comment. What you told me over here is just the functional aspects of what you do, correct? Okay, so I'm going to ignore this, the award-winning BGE and PubCo certified company. No, tell me, why do people hire you? What is the social and the emotional element of hiring you? What you said over here is just the functional aspects of what you guys do. Okay, so on functionality, there's probably another 1,000 competitors who might offer the same thing. I'm not very familiar with the market, but they can say the same thing, correct? You wanna find out why people hire you. What's the emotional side? What's the end game? Why are they hiring you? What you can do? Let's look at JTask Pulse. Okay, and I'm gonna accept this. And Cynthia, by the way, are you based in the US, or are you based in Europe? Just out of curiosity, because I saw this, accept cookies, and I know, everybody's doing it for GDPR, but I have lots of opinions about this because anyways, customers are accepting it. Okay, helping organizations do change management work smarter, faster, and better. I like the title, okay. Change management work, I like that as well. Join the change management revolution in the cloud, okay. JTask Pulse software as a service, okay, that doesn't add any value. Let's user engage, communicate, train, and map, prepare their project task goals, manage risk, improve feature. By the way, I am guilty of the same thing, where when I created the copy for FigPi, it was something very similar. The copy for Invest, which we're rewriting right now, was something very, very similar. Since 2014, JTask Software has been the global organization, been helping global organizations with their business transformation and change initiatives. Again, over here, there's lots of marketing speak. How can you actually make that a bit, and it's, by the way, it's challenging for marketers because that's where we live. Schedule demo, buy now. So engage, communicate, train, map, and upcoming events. Okay, so change management, educational webinar series. I'm just kind of looking at the site. Now, since we're looking at change management, and I'm somebody who's not familiar with the space, the first thing that I will do is change management. So I'm gonna say change management software, maybe. And let's take a look at some of the competitors. And by the way, one of the challenges that I have over here is you did not set for me how you're different, correct? You did not also, I see some functional aspects, but again, the emotional, social aspects, that's a bit challenging, and that is missing. But let's take a look at change management software. So I see Atlassian for large, how4.com, the organization network monitoring applications talk about poor PPC targeting. I will take a look at some of the other websites, but then we'll jump in. We have more exercise that we'll do. IT management, top 10 change management software solutions. Okay, so let's take a look at that. And again, remember, that's the journey that your customer is going through, correct? That they're looking at some of these different solutions. Okay, let's see. Are you guys listed here? Okay, feature comparison. You guys are not listed here. That's a problem. That's something that marketing needs to do, by the way. Oh, it's horrible. With these pop-ups, and I have such a strong opinions about ebooks and downloads because we've been using them for a long time. But you're not listed on the top search results. So that's something that you want to think about and how you can improve that. I go back over here, and I would revamp this page. I would revamp this copy. You're not, okay, so I see what you do, help work smarter, faster, and better. I cannot relate into what that means, work smarter, faster, better. Sometimes it's good to use these, and leave them up to the customer, but it's not really setting a very good example. And I can't see differentiation. So I think the copy, this section, by the way, is an area that I would focus tremendously on and try and figure out. Okay, and I see some comments that are coming. There's too much text. Some of the let's see. I'm gonna just copy. Some of the users are saying there's too much text. I don't have an issue with too much text, by the way. We're going to Vitali premium t-shirts. Okay, let's look at this Vitali premium t-shirts. Ooh, if you're running this, and let's see. Look at this. The first thing that I got is I have to log in. Can I please tell me I can view the site without looking at the login? I'm not familiar with the brand. You're asking me way too early to look. I can buy t-shirts from anywhere. Okay, in a world full of trends, stay classic. I like this. But again, like, the pop-up was way too early in my journey. Stay classic. That might be a good way, by the way. That's differentiation in a world full of trends. Stay classic. I like that. You've set yourself apart, correct? Men, woman, something like this. Let's click on men. Look at that. I'm getting comments where people actually like the site. Very straightforward. Okay, and nice designs. Very simple. I actually think very minimal, very simple, very elegantly put. I like how you differentiated yourself. Maybe there's a UX issue over here where there is too much space and gives people, and again, this pop-up, it makes people leave the site too early. So think about that. I like the images. I like how you use them. It feels that you need to use a bit more copy. I mean, you're already, by the way, I see that you are on the right track. Let's just go into one of the products. I have an issue with the logo and how it's designed. Doesn't look as nice, but that's just a personal feeling. Okay, and I like this, by the way. And we work with lots of apparel companies within the US. I actually like how this is laid out, by the way, and the elegant and simple design. But the copy, by the way, over here, you need to re-emphasize your differentiation from some of the competitors. That's something that you want to do on the site. Okay, so having done this exercise, let's jump back into things that you need to do. Let's go into more strategic. You want to do channel analysis as well. Now, whenever we're talking about channel analysis, what we need to think about what channels are working for us. And by working, you need to define what that means. Lots of times people think about working means conversion. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes some channels play a supporting role, and when you kill them, you get impacted. So do this analysis. Sometimes we come into organization and we're able to kill $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 of ad spend because they're just kind of looking at the metrics and looking at our experience. We know some of this stuff should be reallocated differently. But sometimes they've been doing things a certain way and no one has looked very closely. And just because it's been done a certain way, you just let it run, especially if you're within an organization that is not focused on the numbers. So you want to ask what channels are working, what does it mean for the channel to be working? Another question that you need to be asking is what channels we've tried and they did not work in the past. So that's always interesting. Why didn't they work? Are our competitors able to make them work? Can we reinvest? Can we figure out what can we do about those channels? Another question that you want to ask yourself, and again, this is analysis. This is not something that I'm going to do and I'm going to start implementing right away. This is more strategic. That it's a plan that you come up with. What channels we did not try? Why didn't we try them? Is it just because of somebody says something? For a long time, we did not try LinkedIn. We thought that LinkedIn is a channel that doesn't work. Nowadays, just based on the development and the algorithm, we're like, oh no, LinkedIn for B2B clients make perfect sense. Facebook, you can make it work in some instances. Other instances, you can make it work, but you have to have a completely different mindset. But what's important about the channels that as you're analyzing, if you're going to pick a channel, you need to understand what budget do I need to set to make that channel work. You cannot imagine, I'm talking to B2B clients and they're doing about $50 and $60 million in revenue. And they're like, oh, we want to try Facebook. And I'm like, oh, you can make Facebook work, even if you're B2B. If your clients are hanging out on Facebook, you can figure out a way to reach them. Maybe you're not going to have a direct ROI. And I'm like, well, what kind of budget do you have? And they said, well, we want to try it out with $2,000, $3,000. I'm like, no, really? If you're going to go invest in a channel and you're going to spend less than $10,000 to $15,000 and you're not going to be able to test that channel. And this is just the reality. Less than $10,000, you're probably not testing the channel and you've blown your money away. And even with the $10,000, that's just merely an investment to validate whether the channel works or not. So you have to be willing to say, I am willing to invest $10,000 in this channel, and there is a chance that the channel might not work. So I am willing to part away with that money. But if you're saying, well, I'm going to try a channel for $1,000, $2,000, you might hear stories of getting lucky with that much money. But in my experience, nothing serious has been generated from that much money. Like, for every 100 success story with, like, such low budget, there's probably about 10,000 stories of complete failures. And then ultimately, another question that you want to ask yourself is, well, what skills do I need to test a particular channel? Do I need to hire somebody? Do I need to do some training to be able to test the channel? Because again, everybody talks about Facebook advertising. Very few know how to make it work. Everybody talks about LinkedIn advertising for B2B. Very few companies manage to make it work, and they have the knowledge. Now, I'm not saying that you have to hire a consultant. No, I think that's something that you can train yourself. You can read enough. And I'm not a big fan of reading blogs. Sometimes, blogs are good, but they give you half answers. You need to find a good place, somebody who knows how to do LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever channel you're focused on. They have good track record, and see if they offer training, whether in-person training, virtual in this case, or they offer courses. For example, one of the areas that we lack in, we said, Facebook advertising. And I'm like, okay, so what's the best Facebook advertising course? And it was expensive, like $2,000. I'm like, okay, well, that's something. But if we're going to do Facebook advertising based on the feedback that we got, this is the course that everybody is gonna take. Based on this whole analysis that you've done, that we've talked about until now, you need to come up with a marketing plan. And this marketing plan is going to be the next 3 to 6 months. Here are the activities. We might be redesigning the site, not redesigning, rewriting the copy for the site. We might be looking at conducting interviews. We might be doing differentiation, different differentiation, and we're going to be testing that. We need to set measurable goals. Plans without goals are just really complete waste of your time. It's just a luxury that you do not have. Make sure that you actually have the budget for the plan. If you don't have budgets, then a plan is not very useful. And make sure that you also have the resources to make sure that this plan is actually actionable. And that's how you can succeed. Okay, so those are the tactical aspects of the next 3 months. And again, that should be anywhere between 60 to 70% of your time. Let's talk about more. So that was the strategic aspects of what you need to focus on, 60 to 70% of your time. Let's talk about more strategic and more tactical projects. And by those, expert reviews, web copy, social media, landing pages, emails, and training. So I'm gonna run through those. But each one of those activities can be very powerful in helping you improve your marketing. When it comes to expert reviews, and we've done a little bit, but we were just very focused on differentiation when I took the example. Look at your website and do analysis of your website using just conversion heuristics, using usability heuristics. Figure out what framework you're going to use for the expert reviews. Now, we use the conversion framework. That's what we came up with back in 2007. We've been enhancing it since then. It's available for free on our blog. Just go to our blog and just see there's a conversion optimization guide. It lists all the different 7 elements of the conversion framework. You can use that. There's other frameworks out there, and they're very close to each other, by the way. They just help you analyze the site. What is missing from the site? Now, remember, this is based on expert eye. This is my opinion. This is your opinion. This is somebody else's opinion, correct? So you need to make sure that you also run that expert review on desktop and mobile, completely separate experiences. What I expect on a mobile versus what I expect on desktop are 2 different experiences. And lots of times people design with desktop and then they make it a mobile experience. They make it responsive. No, really, you need to be mobile first if your visitors are coming to your site on a mobile device with a higher percentage. You need to, before you start saying, well, based on the expert review, Khalid sat through this webinar, he says that our title is not very good. You need to validate your findings and suggestions through customer research. When we looked at, when we looked at the site with the green solutions, welcome to, so, okay, well, when we conduct the customer interviews, we say they all hired us maybe to have more green solutions, to be more energy efficient. And I'm just throwing these out. Maybe that's the title that we need to be using. We need to validate through through data, our findings before making any changes. Let's look at analytics. Let's look at where people are exiting the website, how much time they're spending on this page, where they're navigating from the homepage, what's the next page that they're looking at. For us on invest.com, about the next page that's visited on our site is the About Us page. That is not our services page. People want to find out about us. Same thing with FigPi, by the way. Before the pricing page, people look at the homepage, then they go to the About Us page. They want to see who's behind this site. Can I trust them? Are they credible? We can make whatever claim that we want to make on the homepage, but guess what? People are analyzing further. I see some question over here. Yes, we'll be sharing a recording of the. I will be sharing the slides actually with the attendees. So we'll make sure that we share the slides, and we make sure that we also share the recordings. So again, you need to validate your findings. Lots of times, and I see this, by the way, I go to conferences and we do these landing page audits and website audits, and we give feedback, and people will start making changes, and they contact me a month later and say, hey, I've made the changes you've suggested and I didn't see an uplift in my conversions. No, that was not the goal. The goal is to give you ideas and suggestions. Those are my ideas. Your visitors might tell you that Colin's ideas are worth nothing. Let's validate the ideas through user research, through data research. Now, whenever you do an expert review, you can end up with anywhere between 50, 100, 150. I know when we did an expert review, and we are a CRO company, we are a company that lives and breathes usability and conversion and persuasion. When two of our marketing team took our site, I mean, they tore it apart, and they end up with about 100 recommendations of things that we need to fix. We have to validate that through user research and data research. Okay. And next thing that you need to do, copy, and I cannot emphasize how important copy is. I was talking to my daughter, and I told her copy is the second important skill for any human. Not marketer, for any human. And she's like, oh, I might. And I'm like, it doesn't matter what you are going to end up being: a doctor, a surgeon, a lawyer, a journalist, a teacher. Copy and writing copy is one of the most undervalued, highest ROI skills that you can focus on. I don't think it's the first. I know, for example, Dave Gerhardt, who's just an absolutely amazing marketer, says it's the most important skill. Pup from CXL says that as well. I don't think it is. I think it's the second important skill. I think the first important skill that you need to master is knowing how to conduct customer interviews, because, oh my God, that helps you have a normal human conversation where you're getting just a wealth of information from your customers. But then when you have that information all in your head, copy is what enables you to express your positioning, your brand, brings your brand to life, whether it's on your email or on your website and on your social media. So I really think copy is very valuable, especially, by the way, if you're an e-commerce website. Copy is not emphasized tremendously. Lots of times people ignore it. It's like, oh, here's our products. No, copy can do so much in positioning your brand differently. And we saw the brand that we just looked at, in a world of new styles, this, let's go with the traditional, correct? That was a way to set your copy or site differently. And notice this, what I said over here: are you using marketing language or your customer's language? There's a big difference between the two. Do you address customer objections through copy? Are they worried? What are they worried about? Do we address them? Does your copy make your offer or differences very clear? All these things, as you go through copy and as you're updating the copy of your website, are very powerful. I say this as we just updated the copy for FigPi. We're actually about to push it based on about 40 suggestions from 40 different copywriters, which was very powerful. We just got, I had posted about it on LinkedIn, and I got overwhelmed by the community and how much they helped. And we're about to update the copy on invest.com as well. Social media, something else. Everybody is on social media. Very few people know how to use social media effectively. This is your chance to bring your brand to life. This is your chance for me to know who's behind the brand. And lots of times, I was looking at Nissan's website yesterday, their Facebook page, and I'm like, oh my God, it's just this marketing jargons that did not appeal to me, that no human will speak with. How's your organic reach? Lots of times people say, well, Organic Facebook, for example, called organic reach. LinkedIn, it doesn't work. Well, with the right copy, when you're using human tone, you're able to increase that organic reach. But you have to be unique and you have to be different. And it's a skill. I think, by the way, if you're an e-commerce or in your SaaS, there is so much that you can do. But if you're willing to take a risk, correct? If you're willing to stand on the edge and be different, if you're an agency and you can convince your client with that, social media can be very powerful, because that engagement is very powerful. I'll give an example from our LinkedIn page. So for a long time, we post on LinkedIn, and just like there's no engagement, zero engagement. And one time I messaged Simba, who runs our LinkedIn page, and I'm like, Simba, like no one speaks like using those words that you're saying. Just be normal about it. And the engagement increased, and there's a lot more traction that we're seeing. But also look at successful brands, whether it's B2B brands, B2C brands, and not brands that are pushing through paid media, like their social media. There's place for that, but organically successful. What are they doing? What kind of language are they using? For a long time, I was following, for example, HubSpot on Facebook. And I can see that they're spending a ton of money and they just could not get it to work because it just did not feel human. It felt very well choreographed, correct? And when it comes to social media, I like to test, but I like to be very, very human. Look at landing pages. And I have probably about 3 more slides to finish the finish the webcast. Look at landing pages. Now, we like to conduct, and this is again very tactical, but this is something that you can see an ROI on within the next couple of weeks. You need to create separate expert reviews for landing pages. You need to look at set a goal. I like to set a goal of increasing landing page conversion rate by 10 to 20%. We had a client that joined us end of January, just pre-COVID, and they were at 0.9%. And he said, well, if I can do 10, 20% uplift, I'm very happy. And internally I said, okay, well, I think we can deliver within 4 months at 10 to 20%. His conversion rate right now is at 1.65. Now he's somebody where the landing page drives significant, about $4 or $5 million of revenue. Single landing page, single product. When you're able to increase sales by 30, 40%, that is significant. That's something that everybody will notice. You want to make sure that you're maintaining continuity. What's the offer I'm making pre-landing page, and what's the offer I'm making on the landing page? What's the image? What are the words that I'm using? Lots of times people like to test, for example, let's say you're running some testing campaigns on AdWords, on PPC, or in Facebook, but they don't continue that to the landing page. So there's this separate experience, and that causes a drop in the landing page conversion rate. Test. You need to be testing your offer. You need to be testing your copy. You need to be testing videos. You need to be testing design. Don't just randomly test things, but user interviews can drive all of this testing. Couple of more things, and we're gonna close with those. Emails. How can you make your emails more human? And you hear me, by the way, say this again and again, because I think that's how you can compete. In a time where marketers are very focused on Excel sheets and numbers and data and analysis, and mind you, for those of you guys who know me, I'm a programmer, software architect, so not even a normal programmer, very, very advanced programming. But everybody's trying to do the numbers and to do the analysis, and that's fine. What's missing and how the brand comes to life is through being a human brand, talking to emotions. That's how you can stand out. It's a lot more risky, correct? But risky is usually rewarding, and so it's very powerful. Now, when it comes to email, there are metrics that are important. We're always looking at open rate. If people are not opening your email, it doesn't matter what kind of copy you're using within it. And it doesn't matter, your click-through rate is going to go down. So your open rate is first one. Your click-through rate is important. But here's a third metric that people don't pay a lot. How about engagement? How often are people responding to you? How often are they sharing your emails? That's a tough one, correct? Because lots of times when we write emails, the goal is the click-through. I want to get the click-through. Well, engagement is a lot more interesting. So you want to be testing your copy. You want to be testing your offer that you're making within the email, the videos, the design of the emails. Always be testing. Second thing, and since finally, that you should be doing, and I only have one bonus actually item: training. What's missing from your team? What are you missing personally? if you're working in-house or you're working with an agency or you own an agency, there is always something that's missing. I've been doing marketing now since 2005, 2006. And again, I'm doing a course on LinkedIn. I'm doing a course on Facebook. You gotta invest in yourself. And if you run an agency, you gotta invest in your team because and it's very selfish, correct? Because the better they are, the better the agency. And when they leave you and they go somewhere else, they are better off and they look back at the experience and let's say, I've learned a lot from this. One of the biggest testimonials I get is I've had somebody who was working with us for about a year and now she's running actually an experimentation program for HSBC. And I was talking to her and I'm like, so how is it working for the Invest? Now you've left me, you don't have to tell me how nice I am. And it's been about 4 or 5 years. And she said, you know what? 1 year working with Invest was almost like 10 years working for any other, she had worked with other companies. It's equivalent to working like 10 years with any of those companies. That's a huge testimonial because we invest in the training and the loss of the hands-on knowledge that our team members get. I'm going to finish with this point, content marketing, because it's something, I learned the hard way. Are you doing content production? Or are you doing content marketing? For a long time, by the way, we're a site that gets 100,000 visitors a month. So content is very important to us. But what we're doing is content production. We mass produce content. Okay, so they're very full, length article, very well researched most of the time. I have to say that if I'm being honest and critical. But we're not doing the marketing part of content marketing. I was talking to Simba. He runs our marketing, our content team. He is our content team actually. Now we've added a designer with him, Riza, who's I think maybe also attending this webinar, and Sabra. She does the designs for us. And I'm like, oh, you know what, guys? 40% of the time is on content creation. 60% of the time was on content, on the marketing of the content. That's how we can stand out. And the question is, how do you achieve better content distribution? Lots of times people produce content and they put it on social media. They put it on Facebook, on Slack groups, on Twitter, and people don't care. They don't share it. They're there for a completely different goal and you're just spamming them and self-serving. Well, how can you be different? You can learn and think about that. I highly recommend. There was a post from marketingexamples.com. Henry wrote a really good post about how he does his content distribution. Now, some of it works, some of it does not work. So you have to test that out. So you always want to ask yourself, how do I achieve better content distribution? With that, I finished the slides. I hope I gave you some ideas about strategic projects, some ideas about tactical projects I should be focused on in the next 3 months. But I have an offer. So we have this conversion benchmark report. And this is very selfish of me. I'll be very honest, because we are training the team to produce this report. If you are interested in getting a benchmark report, a conversion benchmark report for your site, this is where we benchmark your site against 20 different metrics to see basically where your site ranks. Drop us an email. You can respond to the email that invited you to this webinar, and we'll only do 4 of them because it's overwhelming. It takes a lot of time to produce those reports. So we are training the team, and at the same time, you will see where you rank when it comes to the benchmark report. So you'll get a grade out of 100. So I will make sure. Let me see. I think I have a couple of questions, and I'm going to try and take those questions. Okay, so yeah, the only question that I have is about sharing these slides. We will share the slides. I'm keen on not sharing the slides, but then this one we'll share the slides, because it is not about what's written in the slides. It's about the execution. That's kind of the hard part, correct? You'll discover eventually that it was it's always about the execution. If anybody has any questions, I thank you guys. I tried to do the webinar format a bit differently. I'm kind of experimenting. One of the questions I've had is, there is a plethora of webinars available nowadays and virtual events. How can we stand out? I'm trying to add a bit more interactivity. Maybe I had a bit too much content because I wanted to do another live feedback, but we'll leave that to the next webinar. Thank you for taking the time to come and join us in this webinar. And with that, I think if there are any more, I think we have probably a couple more questions. Let me see. Okay. So I'm going to answer this one question, and then we'll finish with this. How do you stand out with already settled brands? Let me see. With already established brands, what you need to do is you need to figure out there's always an area where people are not filling that area, correct? Um, a perfect example when we looked at the t-shirt sites where everybody's like following the latest fashions. And I said, you know what, I'm not. I am for the very traditional. That's the way. But you need to figure out whether that messaging, first figure out where everybody positioned themselves. I would create that graphs, the x-axis, the x-axis and the vertical axis. So that's very important. Like, you know, let's say you figure out where everybody is, you figure out the area that's empty, and we say, oh, this area that's empty, that no one is focused on, this is where we're going to occupy. But first, make sure that's actually desirable and that you can offer it as well. You know, so, and then you want to test that messaging, correct, with your potential customers. Does it make sense? Is it really important to them? Because you might say, oh, this is an area how I'm going to set myself differently from competing brands, but maybe customers don't like that. So you need to figure out that positioning and whether it matters to customers, and then you need to broadcast it. You need to broadcast it. You need to broadcast it. Now, by the way, when I say that, if you have the budget, yes, go ahead and run campaigns. But sometimes about figuring out where your customers hang out and actually hanging out there. It's hard work, but if you don't have the money, then put in the hours. If you do not have the money, put in the hours. That will set you tremendously apart from your competitors. I see some of our clients are also attending this webinar. Thank you, guys. And with that, we'll see you guys. You'll get an email with the webinar recording. You'll get an email with the slides and also a link to our Facebook page, so you can Facebook group, so you can join and we will have a discussion over there. Have a great rest of the week. We'll talk to you guys soon.